episode 1 of the Audie's Tea Shop podcast. This is hopefully going to be a space where I talk a bit about knitting and woolly things and designing and so on. And it's great to have you along. I hope at least some people are joining us. So first of all, just so that you know, I'm not broadcasting from inside a fridge, although it feels like it. We recently moved from Cumbria to Hereford, and we are doing Herefordshire, and we are doing up a cottage, and this is going to be my amazing, beautiful workroom. At the moment, it's kind of a wide space, but hopefully over the coming podcasts, you'll see it transform into a warmer space when we've got a few more radiators working, but also have a bit more colour and gorgeous stuff in it. It's really exciting. On to my first thing I was going to talk about, which was during last month, issue 80 of Knit Now came out, and it was a special one for me because that's my design. I think it's only the second time I've ever had a design as a cover design, and part of the reason this got to be on the cover was it was my winning entry for their Knitter of the Year competition. And part of the prize was to help to choose, you had to submit a mood board and a design, and then the mood board was used for the collection, and I got to help to choose the patterns that went into the collection by other designers. This is one of them, a brioche shawl called Field of Sunflowers, which I think is gorgeous. My kind of concept was to think about the way that Van Gogh used paint and texture, hence my jumper is called Vincent, should have mentioned. So the mood board was based on Vincent van Gogh, especially the way he used texture as well as colour in his paint. So that was what people were responding to. This is a gorgeous beanie, the Saint Vermeil beanie by me, I don't know how you say it. And then this is really clever, this colour work. It's colour work, Cal, but it uses self-striping yarn to create that colour. So obviously you're using two yarns, but you get all that colour, which I think is a really clever use of that sort of self-striping yarn. And then there's this one when you're talking about colour work. Orlin Jameson Spindrift, isn't that beautiful? You can't necessarily see the texture so well when you're seeing a video of a magazine, but it's gorgeous. So this, I think, is now off the newsstands. I think the new issue is just about to come out, but you will be able to get copies of it through Practical Publishing, and there are some gorgeous designs. And also in this issue, it launches the next year's Knitter of the Year competition, and I really urge you to go into it. I was in a category for designers, but they also have a new designers category, and they have a charity knitter, and they have a web-based one, like for people who podcast or have really good websites. And I think people underrate their skills and what they achieve with their knitting. I know people who knit amazing things, or who knit loads of things for charity and so on, and then they'll say, oh, but I don't design, so I'm not very good, or oh, I don't do colour work, so I'm not very good. And yet they do amazing cabling, or they can knit just anything, or they knit really quickly. And I think you have to make sure that you rate yourself, or perhaps you knit really slowly, but you knit really beautifully. So yeah, if you think you fit into one of the categories, check it out and see, and don't let sort of being intimidated by somebody else designing a beautiful Instagram feed put you off, because what you do is, I'm sure, fantastic, and everyone should rate themselves and rate the fact that you do magical things with sticks and string. We may not be counted as artists by everyone, but craft is not something to belittle or do yourself down for. It's better than sitting just in front of the TV doing nothing. Anyway, the broadcast over. What else have I been up to? Well, during last month, during the half term, we went back up to Cumbria to visit friends and do some catching up. And weirdly, I ended up going to, well, not weirdly that I went, but weirdly it was the first time I went to Kendal Wool Gathering. I say that's weird because actually that was really my most local show, like wool festival, but I'd never been before, and I think it was because it was usually at half term. So actually when we lived in Cumbria, we were usually elsewhere during half term. Ironically, now that we don't live in Cumbria, we were back there for half term and I got to go. So Kendal Wool Gathering, it's not on the same scale as your Wool Fests and Edinburgh Yarn Fest and so on. It's And I think that's great. I think that's a good thing about it. It's a lot less frenetic. The marketplace is still great. It's got lots of independent yarn dyers and suppliers. They had demonstrations as well of spinning and weaving and so on. They had a lovely exhibition. I think it's possibly there anyway, but there was a Quaker tapestry, a bit like the Great Tapestry of Scotland woolwork, telling the story of, it's not necessarily a religious theme, it's more about the kind of cultural and sociological background of the Quaker movement, which is a lot of it was based in the Northwest, at least in this country. And yeah, it was really nice. It was a really calm sort of atmosphere. You don't get as footsore as at the big shows, and it's very much about that wool and where it comes from and the traditions of it, because obviously Kendal was a big place for wool. So another time it's on, definitely go. It was good. And one of the people I caught up with when I was there was Adrian Williams, who used to own a wool shop, which was again kind of one of my local yarn stores when I lived in Cumbria. She used to own Williams Wools in Kendal, and for various reasons she's not. So I'm just rustling around in my bag of goodies here. For various reasons, she's not running the bricks and mortar shop anymore, but she's still very much involved in wool production and selling wool. And she had a stand at the show. And what I picked up, part of the reason I went was to pick up some of her wool that she now has produced for her. I really love it. She's obviously very interested in locally sourced, as so many of us are now, locally sourced. Where does the wool come from? What breeds are they? And with this, you can literally name the shepherd that she's got the wool from. So I picked up some goodies from there. This is Kendal 4-ply, and it's all sourced and sorted in the Cumbrian Hills, and it's spun by the Natural Fibre Company, this one. So again, when it says 100% British, it truly is. It's not just pretending, it really is. So this is a Masham from Gibson and Berry, Low Aldbrook and Gatebeck, and Blueface Leicester from Kentmere, and Shetland, again, from Derwent. So it's all Lake District wool, although the breeds aren't necessarily Lake District. This is gorgeous. It's so squishy. It's obviously a 4-ply, and it kind of, in some lights it looks cream, but then because it's got some darker colour through it, it has that silvery gorgeousness that I just love. I couldn't tell you what it's like to knit up because I haven't had a chance yet, but it does feel really soft, despite the Shetland content, which I think would give it a bit of oomph and be able to work well with texture. It's very soft and smooth, I guess because of the BFL in it. I'm not going to find out how it knits up though, unless it's by contact, because I've actually got a friend in mind to gift this to, so I might have to get them to report back. I did buy for me to knit with. I'm going to be trying out this one, which is Twist and Shout, and this is, again, it's a 4-ply, it's a sock yarn but without nylon, so you can use it for all sorts. And this is Hampshire Down and Mule Fleece and Shetland Fleece. So it's a little bit crunchier, got a little bit more texture to it, I suppose, or rougher texture to it than the Kendal 4-ply. But and it's also, you can see the colour. This is the natural colour. It's much more of a grey, but again, it's a sort of got that silvery. It's got less of a sheen to it, and it has got that crunchiness that I love about Shetland yarn, which I think will take texture really well. Which is good because I've bought, they're quite generous size skeins, and I've bought 4, which I'm hoping and pretty certain will be, because there is. Oh, I did find out how much there was on the skein. Don't think it says on there. Oh, approximately 350 metres. So I've bought hopefully a cardigan's worth, because I have cardigan ideas in mind for this. I'm desperate to get it on the needles. I'm keeping it in skeins at the moment to stop me from casting on yet another project, because I have other things I have to do at the moment, which are equally gorgeous, but I tend to get easily distracted and have terrible startitis. But so Kendal Wool Gathering, well worth a visit if you're in the area next year. And Williams Wool, I will look it up and put it in the show notes if I work out how to do that, because this is my first podcast. And I'll put the link for getting in touch with Williams Wools, because although, as I say, there's not a bricks and mortar shop anymore, they're still very much an entity, and you can get some lovely wool from there. Okay, so last month, another big thing for me was the Spirograph relaunch. Spirograph, I'm just trying to find my original one here. Knit Now, that I mentioned before, is a magazine I've had a long association with. My first real properly published patterns were with them, and they've been really supportive over the years about my designs, and kind of the work I've done with them has convinced me, it taught me huge amounts about designing, and also convinced me that I can do designing more than I started off doing. Quite early on, I designed Spirograph, the first Spirograph. This is the first one that was in the magazine. It was in brown sheep fleece, cotton fleece, I think it's called. And it was for Designer Challenge, what Knit Now do, which is quite good fun and good for designing, getting yourself into designing. They do a Designer's Challenge, which means that on a Friday or Thursday, they send out an email and they say, if you had one skein of this yarn, what would you design with it? And you come up with an idea. You only have a few days, and so you quickly sketch it, and that's it. And this was for an issue that was all about kind of camping and festivals. It was a summer issue, hence the cotton fleece, cotton wool, wool cotton mix. And I thought about it, and at the time I had longer hair that I used to sort of wear scragged up in a bun on my head. And I thought, well, when I'm camping in the summer, I've got cold bones, and I always want to have something warm on my head. But I don't like, when I've got my hair in a ponytail, I don't like wearing a beanie hat, because I think I look like a baked bean. Maybe it's just me, but baked bean head. And I love sort of head wraps and things like that, but I can't get them to stay in place. They just slide off my head. I think if I had curlier hair or something, it would be easier. But I mean, this is a cheat. Look, it's a hairband that looks like a tied hairband, because if I had a real scarf tied around my head, it would slide straight off. So I thought, what I want is a hat, but kind of without a lid. This is what I came up with, and it was literally drawn, it was sketched pretty much on the back of an envelope, and it was one of those serendipitous things where I thought about, I wanted the single cables to run round in a spiral, and then I thought the shaping, I can use that to hide the shaping, of which more later. And it worked, and it obviously got into the magazine, and then I published it as an indie design, and it's been really popular. And it's also, in all honesty, it's something that I've made other versions of it in other wools, and I wear it a lot. I wear it when I go running, I wear it when we go out walking, I wear it when my hair is just in a state, but I want something colourful on my head. It keeps your ears warm. It's really useful. But what I suddenly realised, well, it was probably about this time last year, is I thought, well, actually, it's only ever been in one head size. I didn't even have more than one head circumference. And only ever for one yarn weight, which is this sort of worsted. It's sort of, you can do it in a heavy DK or a lightish Aran, And people had made loads of them, and it was great. But I thought there's a lot more we could do with this. So the first thing I did was to take the original pattern, and what I've done is to first of all increase the head sizes. So now the original pattern, the original Spirograph, now comes with a small to medium size and a medium to large size, which hopefully opens things up a bit more to a wider range of people knitting it. I actually have a friend who's made a smaller version, like a child's version, by taking out one of the repeats, which is totally possible to do if you get the original version. If you take out an 11 stitch repeat, you can make it roughly an inch smaller round. Obviously it depends on the yarn weight and so on. But anyway, so now it's even the pattern, without you fiddling about with it, you can do it small to medium and medium to large size. As I say, hopefully that opens it up a bit more. Maybe you might have some guys who'd want to knit it, because it could totally work for men as well. A lot of men have longer hair, or they might just want to wear it like my husband wears a buff sometimes when we're walking, or when he's cycling, under his helmet and so on, as an extra layer of warmth. So the other change that I've made, or the other improvement, revamp of the Spirograph, is that now you can do a 4-ply version, or you can do a double knit version, or you can do the original kind of worsted Aran weight. So you've now got 2 sizes, still got the 2 heights as well, and you've got a choice of 3 different yarn weights, which opens up a whole new world of stash diving possibility. It doesn't take very much to make these, especially if you do that. This is the headband version, which you can see that goes about, it kind of leaves quite a lot of space on top. The taller version just goes a little bit further up, more like the ponytail hat that there was the big craze for last year. So yes, those are all new versions of it. I'm going to quickly go through the yarns. I was going to talk more about the yarns, but I feel like that for another time. Another time I'll go through these gorgeous yarns. These yarns I bought from Wonderwool Wales, and I had a lovely time getting some yarns that would go together. So this is Tuku Wool Fingering. It's a lovely lavendery colour, quite crunchy, little bit of a halo. It kind of feels a little bit, it's very northern feeling, which is appropriate really, and it feels kind of a little bit Shetlandy. It's got a bit of crunch and a bit of texture to it. Very pretty, very light as well. I'd like to investigate more with this yarn. This is Triskelion Yarns. This is the heavyweight. This is the Elmet Aran in a very pretty sort of dusky rose colour, and the usual depth of colour that you'd expect from Triskelion. And this, I'm sorry, is really hard to see on camera. You can see it probably better on the pattern shots, but this is lovely, squishy, soft Soxier DK, and it's lovely stuff, really generously weighted DK, quite smooth, really warm and cuddly, and this is a gorgeous blackberry colour. Oh, there you go, the light on it there. It's a lovely blackberry colour or plum colour. It reminds me of plums because it's got some of the fibres in it are kind of almost like a bluish colour, which, you know how you get that bloom on plums? It reminds me of that. Anyway, I'd not tried it before. Rachel was just bringing it out at Wonderwool, and she let me have some of it for this sample. So, Spirograph pattern is now available in a much more expanded form for many more possibilities. But I thought, well, there's more that you can do. I mentioned how I used the single cables. Actually, one of the design features I like about this is that you can see that it has got a shape to it. I wanted it to shape over the crown even though it was a headband, because I think it sits better, has less tendency to slide backwards because it's narrow at the top. And the way I achieved that with the original Spirograph was to actually hide the decreases within the single cables, which is I really like because it means you can't see, it looks seamless, which I love. It kind of is seamless. But there's a logical kind of extension of that if you keep with those decreases, that spiral could go right up to a hat. And that's what I did. So this is the Spirograph hat, and as you can see, it's a kind of a beanie shape, and as you can see, the spirals keep on going all the way up to what I find a very pleasing swirl right at the top, and the eyelets go most of the way there. So the technique for the beginning is similar, and then you're basically spiralling up. So I created Spirograph hat as another pattern that's available. So this is the 4-ply version, which I made using Little Grey Sheep British Hampshire 4-ply. I love the Little Grey Sheep website. Do go and have a look. I love the fact that there's such a story behind it. Again, this is something that I think more and more people are interested in. You know, you can find out about just what they do to produce this yarn, because they raise the sheep and they dye the yarn, and it's gorgeous. And it's also lovely stuff. Again, quite a lot of texture to it. It's my daughter wouldn't like it. She'd say it's itchy. It's not itchy, but it has got, it's woolly, you know. You can feel that there's an animal behind this. And it works, and it just, I think it shows that you can have a bit of a halo on the wool that you're using, and you will still get that texture on Spirograph. You don't lose texture, especially I think on the 4-ply version, because you've got more eyelets and so on, and it becomes quite a delicate, almost sort of lacy feel to it with the 4-ply version. This is the double knit version. This is using Triskelion again, but this time it's Triskelion Arthur DK, which has a sort of a sheen to it, almost a silky sheen. Quite a dark colour, this one. Oh, there you go. You can see. And actually using a yarn that's got a bit of a sheen is quite nice, because it picks it up on those single cables. You get a little bit of light reflecting off it. And yes, in the darker colour, you perhaps don't see, you get more of an impression of a texture than actually seeing the eyelets. But yeah, I think it works really well. It's kind of elegant, I think. And then the more sort of roughy-tufty chunky version is this one's in Brooklyn Tweed Shelter. Oh, I should say these two or these three colours I got from Edinburgh Yarn Festival. I had a lovely time going around. I've got to choose some gorgeous colours. And Brooklyn Tweed this the year just gone were the sort of starter in terms of the marketplace. And I got some Shelter, and I'd not used Brooklyn Tweed before. I don't know why, really. I think possibly because I'd only really looked at Brooklyn Tweed patterns that were garments, and it seemed like it felt quite expensive, the yarn, to commit to when I hadn't actually even got my hands on the real thing before. So I treated myself to a couple of skeins, and actually I could have made a headband with just a single skein. As it was, I used just over one skein for the hat. So yeah, and so that's actually not bad economically, and you can see the swirl on there. And I was really pleased with it. It feels more, you can tell it's, to me it feels a bit more of a commercial yarn. It's very soft, and it's very uniform, if that makes sense. Even though it's tweedy and flecky, it feels more mass produced, but it does come up with a very beautiful object at the end, accessory in this case. I was going to say garment, but it's not really. And it photographs beautifully, and I can totally tell why people like to use it, and it's worth investing. If you want something that's going to look beautiful on, feel beautiful, and photograph beautifully, then definitely it's worth getting some Brooklyn Tweed. I know people have said it can be easy to snap, fragile. I didn't find that at all. I found it perfectly forgiving, and people have also said it's a bit sort of twiggy, and I mean you can find a few little flecks of, you probably can't see there, but there's there's a few bits of leaf in it, but no, I think it's lovely, and I do love the colour palette. This is Faded Quilt, which looks kind of, from a distance, it kind of looks almost denim-y, chambray type thing, but in fact it's got little flecks of, it's got little bits of brown and white and a sort of a cobalt blue and a turquoise, and I do like that depth of colour. Even though they're quite soft colours, there's a lot of depth to them. So anyway, so Spirograph has been thoroughly revamped. It's gone from being just a fairly simple pattern to now having quite a lot of options for your yarn weights and for your sizes. And those of you who've bought Spirograph before, thank you very much. You will already have had an email, hopefully a message through Ravelry, saying that the pattern's been updated and that you can download the updated version. And you will also hopefully have been told then that if you own Spirograph and then you want to buy a Spirograph hat separate pattern, then if you put that into your checkout basket on Ravelry, it will automatically take 50% off the price of this pattern because you already own that one. Just as a thank you, really, and also because there are elements of this pattern that are the same, obviously, because they come from the same place. And equally, if you haven't bought either and you buy the Spirograph hat and then you decide you'd like a Spirograph headband, if you buy the headband, when you put that into your basket at the Ravelry checkout, it will take 50% off the price of this one. So it's it's to encourage you to buy the pattern and to also knit more Spirographs. And do send me pictures or put pictures on Ravelry and tag me, because I love seeing all the different Spirographs that people have done. There have been some wonderful ones in handspun yarns and in self-striping and all sorts. People use all sorts of different yarns, and I love the effect that you get. There's a real rainbow of Spirographs on there. So yes, let me know, knit more Spirographs. Okay, from head to toes, socks. I have a funny relationship with socks. Well, a growing relationship with socks. I tried knitting socks, and I always loved the look of sock yarn, but then I'm not very good at actually knitting them. I think because I'd always knitted them and they never really fit very well, and I got really bored with the second sock and really had bad second sock syndrome. And then I was talking about developing my own pattern writing style and wanting to have good examples of pattern writing. And somebody said, oh, you should get hold of one of Rachel Coopy's books. So I bought Coop Knits Socks Volume 2, and it's fantastic, and it is brilliantly written. In fact, it's so brilliantly written that I thought, I'm going to try knitting some socks. And I knitted some, and it was the first time ever that the socks fit beautifully and they're totally wearable, and I can wear them underneath shoes. They're not just, they're not just for padding around the house in. So I knitted a few pairs of socks. I still have terrible second sock syndrome, but it's better than it was. Anyway, I had a sock casualty, unfortunately. This was a pair of socks that was in the making for such a long time. The first one was, in fact, I think I started off knitting a different pattern with this wool, and then I finally knitted one. This is the one. This is Delbert from said book. You can see he's a bit fluffy. So yeah, Delbert, and I knitted one and completed one, and it fitted, and I was really pleased. And even then, it took me forever to get around to knitting the other one. You notice the other one is missing. I don't have the other one. The other one ended up in the wash, and it was a hot wash, and so I only discovered this when we pulled the washing out, and there was a sort of shriveled, sad little bundle of wool, nice and stiff, felted, completely ruined. So I have a feeling that's why I can't find the completely felted one, because it wasn't actually me that put the washing on, it was my darling husband, and I have a feeling he might have hidden the evidence even though I know about it. So sadly, I don't have it. It's almost worse. It would almost be better if he felted both, but now I have one. And possibly even worse is that I did discover in my sock blankets collection of odds and ends, I do actually still have, this shows you, I expect Vicky could tell you how old this is. This is from Eden Cottage Yarns. This is the wool I use, and it's a BFL sock in lichen, which I imagine if you asked her, she'd probably tell you that she hasn't made it for years. I don't know, but I've got a certain amount left. I have to weigh it and see whether it's enough to make another one, which I don't know whether I have then wear to get it to that same point of near destruction as this one. Anyway, I may yet make a pair for that one. But I was thinking about socks, and I was thinking the trouble is I love wearing hand knit socks, but I have a bit of an MO of ending up with this kind of thing going on. This is a Laverne sock from Rachel Cooper's book. I can't even tell you what the yarn is because I can't remember. This is one of my own. I designed my own sock last year called Tinner's Way. And as you can see, in both cases I've kind of done the beginning of it and then kind of got bored. In this case I've sort of put it onto holders so I can nick the needles, possibly so that I could start that one. And so I've got part of one sock in each case. Hopeless, no good for wearing. And the trouble is I tend to then abandon them and think, oh, I'll maybe take it with me, and then I go back to it and I find that I've chosen a complicated pattern and I can't find where I was. So I've decided, you can hold me to this, I'm going to try and knit some plain socks in socks, the Coop Knit Socks Volume 2, and also in this book there's a pattern called Dave, which is a really basic plain sock, so I have no excuse of getting lost. So I'm going to hopefully, I am going to knit myself some plain socks. I've got some Hedgehog Fibres twist sock, which is rather fun, in something called Zephyr colourway, speckles, ubiquitous, and I've also got this that I got from Tiger, the other end of the scale, which is, it's 75% wool, and it's quite a nice bluey greeny colourway. I think it'll be quite fun to knit with. And I thought, I'm not going to be tempted by the fancy cables. I'm going to do plain Dave socks and actually finish them. I'm going to stick them in the car so that when I'm on the school run I can just do a few rounds while I'm waiting. It's going to happen. Possibly. Anyway, enough sock news. Hat news. Back to head, from head to toe to head again. This is my Charlie hat. Realise that it's quite similar, possibly inspired by my Willard Fair jumper that I'm knitting. That I've knitted. This is obviously my Willard Fair, as in mine. I wear it, not my design. But yeah. Anyway, so actually Charlie's zigzag was inspired by Charlie Brown, the zigzaggy jumper, sort of iconic jumper. And this was originally a Knit Now pattern. This is in West Yorkshire Spinners, Blueface Leicester, I believe, in pomegranate. It's a really nice colourway and very squishy, yummy wool to knit with. So it comes in. I released the pattern last month. It's in my Ravelry shop. what I've done for this version, for the indie release, is to make the zigzag pattern so that you can use it either as a texture like this, which is a texture, sort of a Irish moss stitch really effect, just knits and pearls, or you can do it as colour work if you fancied, if you had a little bit of leftover yarn that was the same weight, you can do a colour work zigzag. So yeah, you've got different options. It comes in 3 different sizes. This is the adult size, or you could use it, I think, as a sort of older child size. I know this because my children wear it. And it's a toddler size and a baby size for it as well. It's a really quick kind of gift hat thing. It doesn't take very long. You can knit it up in an evening. But it's got a bit more to it, especially with a bobble on. It's I think people will be happy to have that. Anyway, it's available now, but you can actually also have it for free, because if you subscribe to my newsletter, which is another new venture alongside this podcast, then you get a download code to download this on Ravelry for free. So I will put the sign up details in the show notes, but if you want to download Charlie for free, then you just need to sign up. I promise I won't spam. It is a newsletter, probably monthly newsletter. It gives you a bit of a preview of stuff that's coming up, a few ideas about what I've been doing, and I'm going to put a discount code in each time for different patterns. So yeah, what's to lose? You get a free pattern and you get some discounts as well. So sign up. I was going to say as well, I was thinking about this pattern, and I think for beginners, if you can knit in the round, it's a good place to start if you want to try out knitting from a chart. Because if you do, especially if you do the textured version rather than the colour work, you don't have to do any kind of swapping around. It is just knits and pearls. But and it's a fairly, the pattern repeats not too many times round. And I think you've got written version and chart version. I think if you're scared of using a chart, then try out Charlie, because you can't go too far wrong. You can see where you're going, and once you've set it up, you can follow the chart. So yeah, and you can get it for free, which is a bonus. Try it out without anything to lose. Right, what else is on my needles? I was going to show you these. So this has been on for a while, ever since it started to get chilly. This is Jenny at the Fair cardigan. The pattern is by Mary Mucklestone, and it's from Isolde's book of Rhinebeck sweater patterns. I haven't got the book, I just downloaded the individual pattern. And it's going to be a kind of big Starsky and Hutch style cardigan. You can see it has, this is where the steeks are going to be. And obviously there's a sort of fairly bog standard plain natural Aran, is it Aran weight? I think it's Aran or heavy, it might be worsted weight. Natural colour, but then all of these colour work bits are in Berlin Yarns, which is a small company in sort of north of Scotland and Scottish Islands, which I'll put the link to. And various complicated reasons, I recently got in touch with them or learnt a bit more about them, and I had some of this yarn sent to me, and I thought it would be a really nice way to try it out. It happened that the right colours were there. It's quite a different colourway from the original pattern, which has browns and blues and so on. And I just think they're looking lovely. I think I'm hoping it's going to be a really good showcase for those different. There's a mixture of natural colours and dyed colours that are inspired by the landscape from where it comes from. So yeah, I've got as far as as you can see, I've got as far as where I need to join the sleeves on. So I've currently started a sleeve. Having a few issues with fitting the colour work into the stitches, into the number of stitches. It's the only criticism I would have, but I love the way it's looking, and it knits up really quickly, which is nice for a colour work sweater because it's a bit heavier. Usually, you know, you're doing colour work and it takes forever to get anywhere, and actually this grows quite quickly. So that's on my needles, and then just because I haven't got enough to do, I have in my little bag, now I don't know how to say it, Sagitta or Sagitta hat from Woolly Wormhead. Kind of an impromptu, last weekend, an impromptu knit along with my friend in the States. We're both using this, which is Swans Island washable merino. It's a Swans Island sport weight. I'm using graphite. And yeah, it was partly I like the look of the final hat, but I also I'm always fascinated by the construction, and this is what Woolly Wormhead is a genius at. And it just fascinates me because look, with this one, you do a provisional cast on, and then you're knitting sideways round the hat, which I'm not unfamiliar with. I've designed a couple of hats like mooring is a sideways construction, but I haven't done it like this. With mine, I did that, and then I pick up the stitches and knit the crown, pick up the stitches and knit the brim. This is all in one. You're knitting using short rows. You're having slight decreases sometimes to knit the brim, which is like sideways garter stitch, and then here you've got more short rows to create, you're shaping the crown as you go. So the whole thing, all the construction, all the shaping is being done in one go, and then at the end you'll undo the provisional cast on, get those live stitches and graft it together, which is just amazing. It's genius. It's all in one. No seaming really to speak of, because it'll look completely seamless. And then plus you've got the short rows and the decreases and so on create this, it's kind of hard to show you, but it basically create a sort of sculptural effect of almost little pyramids. And I know Woolly Wormhead always does these amazing sculptural hats, but it's just, the construction is mad. And I think the thing that fascinates me is that this is so far from a traditional hat construction, and the thought that you could sit there and go, I know, I'll start like this and I'll knit round and I'll do this and I'll end up with these little pointy bits. It's genius. It's brilliant. It's a really interesting knit, and actually, although it's comes out with something that's quite a complicated piece of knitting, it's 14 rows, quite a lot of which are actually knitting back. So it's really addictive to knit, because you can just sit down and you can do those 14 rows and you're kind of knitting your way round. So yeah, I'm really enjoying it. It's a good pattern, and I think it is good, even though I have other things I should probably be doing and knitting and other deadlines to meet. It's good to do this and you know, to challenge yourself with something a bit different, because you learn so much about our craft, and there's so much to learn always. Right, so nearly finished with what I was going to say now. I've got Island wool. This is another kind of Cumbria to Herefordshire connection. Fiona, who runs Island Wools, is originally from Carlisle in Cumbria, and we'd talked before because she provided some wool for my North Star knits collection, which ironically I started to design before I knew I was leaving the North, and then ended up launching just as I was leaving the North. And I used yarns that are from the Faroe Islands, which is very north, provided by somebody who used to live in the North, who now lives somewhere that I was moving to. Weird connections. Anyway, so this is the North Star hats collection, and it uses the Faroe Islands yarn, one of the Faroe Islands yarn that Island Wool import. I think it's the sort of most Faroese of them, because it's produced and spun and so on the island itself, or on the islands themselves. So and it comes in 3 different weights. So my designs included Ursa Minor, which is in the lightest weight, which is it feels like a kind of a 4-ply. Lovely, as you can see, lovely for colour work, and it's so warm, gorgeously warm. So yeah, that's Ursa Minor, and all of these designs, well, certainly 2 out of the 3 designs had sort of Nordic inspired patterns. So this is kind of a probably more Fair Isle inspired patterning on there. So that's Ursa Minor. Then the next weight up is more like a DK weight, and this has got a Norwegian Selbu star design on it. This one's called Polaris. And again, there's such integrity to the fibres with it. This is the Snelden yarn, I should have said Snelden yarn, which is the one that's produced on the island. And yeah, it's not heavy, but it's got a real density to it. It's lovely. So that's the second of my North Star hats, which is the Polaris design. And then this one, I went away from the Nordic patterns. This is with the heaviest weight, and this is called All Points North, and the reason is it's kind of got the compass star on it. and I just wanted that idea of of the compass and of pointing north. So and so I was familiar with Snelden yarns and with Island wool, and then I've moved to Hereford, and actually, as I say, at the moment Island wool is actually based out of Hereford or Herefordshire. And so I actually got to meet Fiona in real life, which was fantastic. She's absolutely lovely, and I got to chat to her and found out a lot more about the Faroe Islands and about the other yarns that they supply. So they also have Navia yarns and Siri and that I got to go around and squidge lots of the yarns yesterday, which was fantastic. There's one that's a wool cotton mix, and I'm not really a fan of cotton usually, but I really like this, and it's. Oh, I have plans. More excitingly, I have plans with Fiona for more in real life stuff, which is new for me and not so new for her. But we're looking at stuff certainly very locally. If you live in reasonably within reach of Herefordshire, then even more than the rest of you, look out for what we're doing. Can't really say more than that at the moment. But I have got yet more Snelden yarn. I've got this, which is another of the natural colours. It's a gorgeous deep chocolatey dark brown, and we're pairing it with this lovely sort of Turkish blue, because I think they just make an amazing colour combination, a bit unusual. So I have things I'm going to be doing with this, and it's to do with this project that we're hoping will happen later, early next year. And she also, to help me with said project, she's also given me this, which is I can't pronounce it. I was told how to, but I can't. This is pretty much the Bible for Faroese knitting, and it is gorgeous. I'm pretty sure you can get this through Island Wool, and it's just no real words, but just lots of ideas for traditional colourwork patterns in the style that they use. I'm told that in Faroe Islands jumper will tend to have this kind of pattern but all over, so it tends to be you choose a pattern and you use it all over. So I'm now of course gagging to try and cast on a proper Faroe Islands jumper, but I think I'll be sticking to hats to begin with, just partly for time reasons. But I can't wait to try swatching some of these designs. It just begs to have lots of amazing colour combinations. So yes, if you always like a good book, this is a good one to try. And that's almost it. Just to let you know about what I will hopefully be talking more about next time, and what's going to be happening this month at Anna Designs, which is I'm hoping, excuse me for kneeling down, I'm hoping that this will become not just a personal sweater of my collection, but that will become a pattern that's coming out. This colour work was originally the colourwork design that I came up with for a hat called Barnoon, which was part of my St Ives collection, inspired by St Ives in Cornwall. And I loved the hat, but I just thought it would look so nice as a yoke for a jumper. So I made this originally just as a personal project for me. I adapted the colourwork and spent many days knitting on, I think it was 2.75mm needles. I added a ball of Jameson & Smith Shetland 2-ply, so 4-ply, no 2-ply, what was I about, jumper weight a day. I was basically adding around until I finally got to the colourwork. And I love it, and I do wear it a lot. I love it, and I hadn't intended to make it a pattern, but then every time people saw me wearing it, I think I wore it to Edinburgh and people seen it on Instagram, and people keep saying, oh, I want to knit that. So I'm going to try my best to do a bit of reverse engineering and do some maths, and this will hopefully be a pattern. So that's one to look out for in the coming month. That's about it. I'm a tea shop, but I haven't had any tea. I have had tea nearby this whole time. I hope you have too. And thank you for joining me. Hope you'll join me next time. Sign up for the newsletter. I will put notes at the end, or follow me on Instagram. And happy knitting. See you soon.